Welcome to The Explainer. You know, sometimes you might feel like your French sentences are all a bit, well, direct. Today, we're going to unlock a whole new perspective by tackling a grammar point that is absolutely essential for sounding more natural, the passive voice. All right, let's kick things off with a really simple active sentence. Le vent ferme la porte. The wind is our subject, right? It's the star of the show, the one doing the action. Super direct, super clear. Right. But what if we want to shift the focus? What if the door is the real hero of our story here? What if we want to put the spotlight on the thing receiving the action? Well, that is precisely where the passive voice comes into play. And we're about to break down exactly how to build it and, just as importantly, when to use it. So here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with why we even need this thing. Then we'll get into the simple 3-step recipe to build it. We'll also cover those tricky little details like prepositions and tenses, and we'll finish up by clearing up a super common point of confusion and giving you a very handy shortcut. So first things first, why even bother with the passive voice? Well, at its heart, it's not about making things more complicated. It's all about perspective. Think of it like a camera angle in a movie. It's a tool for shifting the focus from the doer of an action to the receiver. So, you can really see the difference in focus here, right? The active voice answers the question, who is closing the door? The answer, le vent, the wind. But when you flip it to the passive voice, the question becomes, what's happening to the door? And just like that, la porte takes center stage. Okay, so how do we actually do this? Is it some kind of complicated grammar magic? Nope, it's actually a super simple 3-step recipe that works pretty much every single time. And what's great is that this recipe is so logical. You're not pulling words out of thin air. You're just rearranging the pieces you already have. So let's actually apply these 3 steps to our sentence about the wind and the door. Okay, check out how this transforms our sentence. La porte slides right to the front. Our verb changes to est fermé. That's our être plus the past participle. Now, this next part is absolutely crucial. See that little extra e on fermé? That is not a typo. Why is it there? Well, because the participle has to agree with our new subject, la porte, which is feminine. Seriously, this agreement rule is a big deal in French. You just can't forget it. Okay, but what if you have no idea who did the thing, or maybe it just doesn't matter? Think about it. If your bike gets stolen, you probably say, Mon vélo a été volé. My bike was stolen. You don't know by whom. Or, if a thief was arrested, it's pretty obvious the police did it, right? In those cases, you can just drop that whole par phrase entirely. Super useful. All right, so you might be thinking, got it, use par. Easy. Well, hold on. While par is definitely your main tool, French has this other little preposition that you have to use with certain kinds of verbs, and that's de. And getting this right is a real level up moment. Here's a good way to think about it. Par is for doing something, an action, but de is more for states of being or feeling. Let me show you what I mean. For example, aimer, to love. That's a feeling, an emotion, right? So you have to use de. If you said aimer par ses collègues, it would just sound clunky and wrong to a native speaker. So remember, with feelings, it's going to be de. And it's the same idea here. Entourer, to surround. It's describing a physical state of being. The house isn't being actively wrapped in flowers at this exact moment. It just is surrounded by them. It's a state. So again, we reach for de. Okay, this is where it gets really cool and honestly pretty simple. How do you put the passive voice into the past or the future? Is it super complicated? Not at all. The secret is to just change the tense of one single verb, être. Just look at this table for a second. Do you notice something amazing? That past participle fermé, it never changes. It just sits there. The entire mood and tense of the sentence is carried by our little helper verb, être. So if you want the past tense, you just put être in the past. A été. You want the future? You use the future of être, sera. That's literally it. It does all the heavy lifting for you. All right, let's tackle something that trips up so many learners. This is a big one. Sometimes a passive sentence can look exactly, and I mean exactly, like a regular old active sentence in the passé composé. I mean, look at these two. Elle est entrée and elle est interrogée. They look like twins, right? Both have être, Both have a past participle, but one means she entered, that's active, and the other means she is questioned, that's passive. So what gives? How in the world do you tell them apart? Okay, here is the secret handshake. It all comes down to what kind of verb you're dealing with. See, the passive voice only works with what we call transitive verbs. Those are verbs that can take a direct object. You can question someone, but you can't really enter something, not in the same way. The verb entrer is intransitive. So elle est entrée can only be the active past tense. But because interroger is transitive, elle est interrogée can be passive. That's the key right there. Whew, okay, we have covered a ton of ground. So let's start to wrap this up. But before we do our final summary, I want to give you one last pro tip. Think of it as a really cool shortcut. This is a super elegant trick you'll hear French people use constantly. Instead of going through the whole être plus past participle thing, you can often just use a pronounal verb to say the same thing. So when someone says la porte se ferme, it doesn't always mean the door is closing itself. It's often just a shorter, snappier way of saying the door is being closed. All right, let's nail this down. These 5 points right here, this is your whole toolkit. This is everything we've talked about. If you can remember to shift your focus, use the basic formula, nail that participle agreement, choose the right preposition, de or par, and double-check your verb, I'm telling you, you've cracked the code on the French passive voice. So there you have it, the French passive voice, hopefully no longer a mystery. The rules are actually pretty clear, the structure makes sense, and now you have all the tools. So what's the best way to make all this stick? Go find an active sentence right now and try flipping it. Thanks for tuning in.